A brand new comedy drama starts tonight. Just what lengths will estate agents go to make a sale? Chris Marshall stars in Sold, starting tonight at 9 here on ITV1.
Good morning. Still searching in the sandpit. Police look for more victims in the place where the body of missing teenager Vicky Hamilton was found.
A simple new way to tackle dyslexia. Could it be the solution to illiteracy in our schools?
And to reuse or not to use at all, is it time to ban plastic bags? That's what we're talking about on the News Hour today. It's Thursday, the 15th of November, 2007.
Hello, good morning from me. You're watching the News Hour. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Also on the programme this morning, we speak to Pakistan's former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif about rumours he's preparing a coalition with Benazir Bhutto against General Musharraf.
And back home, some mortgage relief with the prospect of 2 or 3 interest rate cuts next year, say experts. So will we still be having a lean Christmas, and what should you do now about your mortgage?
Thermals again today?
Definitely, definitely. And some form of night vision goggles, because it's very foggy out there.
Oh, indeed, yes.
Yes.
Mist around the river this morning as I left, yes.
Absolutely, yes. It's going to cause some problems, I think, over the next few hours. Some places it could well last into this afternoon. Now, the fog is freezing in places. Temperatures in some areas have dropped down to as low as -5, so there's definitely a ground frost. Many places you'll be scraping the ice off your car as you head out the front door this morning. You will definitely need to leave a little bit of extra time because there's quite a bit happening weather-wise this morning. Away from all that, some areas managing to see a little glimpse of sunshine. There are 1 or 2 showers around, namely around the far southeast in parts of Kent. As we go into this afternoon, as I said, the fog may well linger in some areas. That's going to affect the temperatures. Another chilly day today. Temperatures at best 10 degrees in parts of Northern Ireland, but most places remaining in single figures.
Andrea, thanks. Our top story this morning. Police are to resume searching for human remains at a house in Kent, where the skeleton of a missing girl was discovered. The remains of 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton were found in the garden of the Margate property. Peter Tobin, who once lived at the address, is due to appear in court today on charges related to Vicky's death. Well, Richard Gaisford is outside the house. Richard, are police expecting to find more bodies?
Well, they certainly say they came here with information relating to Dinah McNichol, Penny, so they will continue to look until they're sure there's nothing more in the house. They're now looking elsewhere in the garden. They're also looking throughout the house in recesses, behind walls, that kind of thing, just to make sure that the information they had was either right or wrong, and to give as much information as they can to Dinah McNichol's parents. But, of course, they've found, as you say, Vicky Hamilton's body here. It was a shock and a surprise to many, discovered under the sandpit there in the back garden. Vicky was 15 years old when she was last seen in Bathgate in Scotland, so quite how her body managed to arrive here some 500 miles away in the back garden of 50 Irvine Drive in Margate is obviously part of the police investigation. As you say, a 60-year-old odd job man, Peter Tobin, actually lived here in the early 90s, and he will appear in court today up in Scotland in connection with Vicky Hamilton's death. And of course, at this time, police will then start to look at all of those other unsolved crimes on their books. It obviously gives them a bit of a jolt, this, when they manage to find a body some 16 years on. They'll look at a number of them, and in today's papers, Penny, up to 16 missing persons are said to be being investigated at the moment, perhaps in connection with the sudden appearance of Vicky Hamilton's body.
Richard, thanks very much.
Let's get the rest of the news. Here's Priya.
Thank you, John. The man found guilty of murdering TV presenter Jill Dando will find out today if the appeal against his conviction has been successful. It's the second legal challenge that Barry George has launched over the guilty verdict, which was passed 6 years ago. Well, Jonathan Swain sent us this report from the High Court.
Well, the decision is expected to be announced just after 10 o'clock from the appeal court behind me. Now, the judges have some various options open to them. One scenario is that Barry George could walk out of court later on today a free man, although that I am told that the most likely outcome is that this case will then be sent for a retrial, which means that the 3 appeal court judges have some serious doubts about the evidence that they heard during the appeal last week, and then they'll decide that it will now be for a new jury, perhaps next year, to decide whether Barry George is guilty or not of killing Jill Dando. Well, I was in the appeal hearing for 3 days last week, and there we heard from the forensic scientists who carried out tests on that tiny speck of firearms residue that was found in Barry George's coat pocket at the time of his arrest. And all of those experts concluded that they couldn't be certain for sure as to whether this firearms residue found in Barry George's coat pocket actually was used by the gun that killed Jill Dando. Well, the judges, of course, could uphold the conviction, in which case Barry George would simply go back to jail and serve his life sentence. But if I suspect that this case is then sent for a retrial, later on today there'll be lots of questions will be asked. If Barry George didn't kill Jill Dando, then who did?
New proposals to hold terrorist suspects for up to 58 days without trial are being unveiled by ministers today. It would extend the current 28-day limit, a move which is opposed by the Tories and Liberal Democrats and by some Labour MPs. The deaths of 7 members of the same family in a fire in Northern Ireland are being treated as murder, according to police. Investigators say they found a significant amount of petrol inside the property and are appealing for information. All 7 bodies have been located but are still inside the house. A British soldier has been killed in southern Afghanistan. He was serving with the 2nd Battalion, the Yorkshire Regiment, when his patrol was caught in a blast near Sangin in Helmand Province. His family have been informed. O.J. Simpson is to face trial for kidnapping and armed robbery. A judge in Las Vegas ruled the former American football star should face 12 charges over an alleged theft from a casino 2 months ago. The 60-year-old faces life in prison if he's convicted. 22,000 turkeys are being culled in Suffolk to prevent the spread of bird flu. Government vets say the cull is on 4 farms and it's a precaution. The sites are operated by the same company that runs the farm in Redgrave at the centre of the current outbreak. The Post Office is launching a Christmas savings scheme to fill the gap left by the collapse of the festive hamper firm Fairpack. Savers will be able to deposit up to £1,000, which they can't access until November next year. A 29-year-old Russian woman has given birth to quintuplets at a hospital in Oxford, defying the advice of doctors in her own country. Russian experts said the parents would have to terminate some of the fetuses for the others to survive. But with the help of donations, the parents have travelled thousands of miles and had all 5 baby girls. The 10-year-old son of charity fundraiser Jane Tomlinson will collect her CBE today. Jane died early this year after a 7-year battle with cancer. She raised almost £2 million for charity. She left strict instructions that she wanted Stephen to collect her honour. Interest rates could be cut up to 3 times next year to help avert a downturn in the economy. The Bank of England wants to encourage spending after warning of future economic uncertainty in its quarterly inflation report. Let's have a look at what's on the website this morning. Why children are too scared to cross the road outside school. Find out what drives unhappy workers to fast food and alcohol. And should we ditch plastic bags to save the planet? Vote in our online poll. All that and more on GM.TV. It's just gone 8 minutes past 6. Now it's back to Penny and John.
Thanks,
Yes,
Priya. Let's have a look at the morning papers. Daily Express leads on that good news that Priya's just been telling you about, confident predictions that interest rates will be cut, and the wacky news, picture there of a spring lamb born in November up in Sunderland. Daily Mail front page, the airport inquisition tells us that travellers face price hikes and the prospect of up to 53 different pieces of information to be extracted from everyone before they board an aircraft leaving this country. And is it a mass grave, the sombre events down in Kent?
Interesting. Actually, the Telegraph says you have to give 90 pieces of information.
Well, it'll be a lot.
It'll be a lot of information. Yes, so that's the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Fortress Britain, they're calling it. The Guardian, banks' grim warning over the UK economy. Interest rates may fall, but next year is going to be tough, says King, saying actually that 50-50 chance of us going into recession next year. The Times, mortgage relief as bank rates are set to fall. And finally, The Independent, Imran Khan's desperate text message to the UK hours before his arrest. My life is in danger. And that's what we're talking about now. Former cricketer Imran Khan, charged under anti-terrorism laws, it's been reported, seized during a student rally against President Musharraf. His ex-wife Jemima Khan says she's very worried about how he'll be treated in prison.
The situation's so volatile and so unpredictable at the moment. It's really hard to say it's really hard to know what's happening and what's going on and what's likely to happen. But we do know there have been instances of torture in the jails. I know that certain lawyers who've been particularly vociferous and who have opposed Musharraf throughout this period have been tortured in jail.
Jemima Khan speaking last night. Well, we're joined now on the phone by the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How surprised were you that Imran Khan's been detained and charged?
Well, this is a very serious matter, and he's been picked up under terrorist law. And recently, Mr. Musharraf has come out with an amendment in the Army Act, which says that the civilians will also be tried in military courts. Now, this is very serious. He's talking about elections on the 8th of January next year, which is just about a few weeks ago, and he's virtually imposed martial law in the country. The political leaders are being rounded up. Thousands of the political workers and leaders are in jail, and the lawyers are in jail, the civil society leaders are in jail, the activists are in jail. What sort of elections is he going to hold after a few weeks? I think when you tie the hands up, when you virtually put people in jail and handcuff them, and you don't allow them to speak, the media is under very severe restrictions, and there's complete blackout of all the channels in Pakistan. And you know that British print media people have also been expelled from Pakistan recently.
Sorry to appear to interrupt Mr. Sharif, but so I'm taking it from that you weren't at all surprised about this. Now, I know that you tried to get into Pakistan in September. You were thrown out. Will you try to go back again?
Yes, certainly. Look at him. Look at this man. There was a very clear judgment on my allowing my return back to Pakistan, and he violated that judgment of the Supreme Court, and then he committed a contempt and deported me to Saudi Arabia, and now he's thrown out the same judiciary out of office. I mean, this has never happened in any civilized country of the world, that the judiciary is removed without any authority, without any legal sanctity. This is something unheard of. And I will, to answer your question, I will certainly make another attempt to go back very soon to Pakistan, because my country needs me.
And rumours that you're going to form a grand coalition with Benazir Bhutto against President Musharraf. What is your comment on that?
Yes, we are in touch with each other. In fact, we did sign a Charter of Democracy together some time ago, but then she decided to talk to Mr. Musharraf, and she held negotiations with him, although there was a very clear understanding that none of us will talk to the dictator, but she chose the other course. But now that she is expressing her desire to come back and join the democratic forces, we welcome that move, and we will be very happy to work together and launch a joint struggle against the dictator.
When would you go back? I mean, what would it take? Otherwise, I assume you'd just be arrested.
Well, I'm talking to my hosts here, and I'm telling them how important it is for me to go back now. It's already getting late. They also, I think, understand that, and I think they have taken the matter up with the Pakistani authorities.
Nawaz Sharif, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Time now 30 minutes past 6. A massive weekend of football ahead, as both Scotland and England's hopes of qualifying for Euro 2008 will be decided. For Scotland, a win against it is all they need. Well, no problem there then. But England's future is out of their hands. We're relying, of course, on Israel getting a draw, at least a draw, against Russia to stand the remotest chance. Joined now from Glasgow by our old pal Hugh Keevans. Hugh, very good morning to you. I imagine huge excitement in Scotland at the moment.
Well, John, there's a mood of unbridled optimism. Number one, that's not like us. Number two, it's entirely justified because of the way the teams played. 24 points won. It's incredible we haven't qualified already.
Well, you've done tremendously well. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I gather the interest in the game is staggering. And they're opening parks and putting up great big screens.
Well, we've got a 55,000 sellout at the National Stadium. We've got the Tartan Army on the green, Glasgow Green. That was sold out in 3 minutes. All the bars and clubs in Glasgow are getting into party mood. The players training at Hampden ahead of the game, they're in super confident mood. We've won all 5 games in Glasgow. The first one at Celtic Park because Robbie Williams was playing at Hampden, and we've been entertaining you ever since.
Absolutely, you have indeed. And one has a feeling it could just be Scotland's year. I mean, you got the Commonwealth Games. Well, why not qualification for Euro 2008?
Well, there's this magnificent feel-good factor about the country and Glasgow in particular because, as you say, the Commonwealth Games will be here in 2014. It's all down to Walter Smith, first of all, who's now back at Rangers, and to Alec McLeish, who ended the Bertie Vogts era and gave the country a team to be proud of once again. We're only playing the world champions, John. That's all. Well,
indeed, I was going to rather hesitantly just point that out. I mean, I don't want to sort of subdue your enthusiasm when everyone, well, certainly me, wishes you well. It'd be a fantastic achievement for the entire team and the management, but it is Italy, you.
Well, everyone said that when we played France. We beat them here in Glasgow, and we beat them in the Parc des Princes as well. No one said that would happen, least of all Thierry Henry, but we did it. And we are defying prediction, logic, the odds, everything. And we may very well go all the way on Saturday and just do it again.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, we truly do. Thanks very much, Dee, for talking to us, Hugh. Let's cross to Jerusalem now. Our only hope, of course, Julian Rake is Deputy Chief of the Reuters Bureau there. Julian, tell me about the mood in Israel. I mean, what do people really want to happen here? Do they really want to see Israel beat Russia, or would they like, actually, Russia to win and knock England out?
Well, in terms of the mood, it's certainly not as exciting as it is in Scotland at the moment, as we just heard from your other correspondent there. Yes, of course, everyone wants Israel to win. It's a very proud nation, a proud footballing nation. And also there's a lot of interest here in English football. But let's not forget that Israel also has a population of some 1 million Russians. 15% of the population is Russian-born. So we're anticipating the stadium will be quite divided between those who are cheering Russia on for their qualification and those who are cheering Israel on to give a good performance. And we mustn't forget also that Israel tend to play best when they have nothing to lose. They're a specialist at friendly matches. Unfortunately, they didn't qualify for the Euro Championships, but they haven't done badly. And have only lost 2 of their last 24 games at Ramat Gan, the stadium where they'll be playing on Saturday night. So there's every reason to believe that the crowd will get behind Israel and Israel will play for the pride of the nation, if not for England's qualification chances.
Well, I certainly hope so. No Yossi Benayoun, though, the Liverpool player, he's out injured.
Yeah, that's a blow to the squad. Although, whilst his form has been peaking for Liverpool, he hasn't been playing that well in an Israel shirt this year. So it's pretty much the same squad, minus Yossi Benayoun, that drew with Russia last year in Moscow. We mustn't forget that they've already taken points off Russia in Moscow and, of course, taken points off England in Israel earlier this year. So there's every reason, again, to believe that a result is possible.
Well, we'll certainly be cheering for Israel, or most of us will, south of the border here in the UK. Thanks very much indeed, Julian. Good to talk to you. And again, fingers crossed, Penny.
18 minutes past 6. Hey, good news for homeowners this morning, possibly. Interest rate cuts are on the way. Experts predicting up to 3 interest rate cuts, bringing relief to millions of borrowers who've seen rates go up 5 times in the last 15 months. Financial expert Justin Urquhart-Stewart is here. Good morning. I say possible good news because actually it wasn't all good news, was it?
Well, no, not really. I mean, good news, yes, rates look as though they're coming down. So, yes, 2 to 3 cuts. And I have to say that inflation report and the comments from the Bank of England yesterday were pretty depressing stuff because the economy is going to slow down and they're talking about quite a sharp fall. And that's not good for anybody at all, so in terms of jobs and things like that. But the bit that worries me is that there are 2 million people replacing their fixed mortgages coming up in the next 12 months, and so they'll say, oh, look, rates coming down. But actually, what they'll be doing is, yes, the rates will be coming down, they're still going to be higher than they originally took them out at. So
yes.
I'm a fear, still, the cost of money is still going to be higher for them.
And, of course, talking about the gloomy news, I mean, the big recession word reared its ugly head.
Yes, I mean, is there going to be a recession? We don't know. There's going to be a significant slowdown. If you want to put a percentage on it, 40–50% chance of a recession. But that doesn't necessarily mean a disaster.
It's quite strong.
It's quite, well, you're talking about 2 quarters of the economy slowing. Now, we've had a huge period of growth going right the way back to 91, 92, when we got thrown out of the ERM and the European rate mechanism. And then we found we've had fairly steady growth. We were heading for a slowdown in 2001. But with interest rate cuts and things like that, actually we've had a sort of boom since then.
But a slowdown isn't the same as a recession, though, is it? I mean, as soon as we talk about recession, we're talking about unemployment, and that's the big.
It's a matter of how big it is. Unfortunately, it's a bit of an emotive word, and a recession is just 2/4 of a slowdown. Are we going to get that? That's quite possible. Is there going to be a disaster? That's highly unlikely. The economy is in quite good shape. The problem is, actually, if people go out spending so much money, and of course we've built up a lot of debt, and 60% of our economy is based on you and I going out spending. We're no longer a manufacturing economy, we're a consumer economy.
If your mortgage, you know, they talk about the 2 million people whose mortgage is coming to an end. Would you fix it? Would you, if you could, would you float it, or what would you do?
At the moment, to keep it variable, because what you want to be able to do is actually have these rates cutting in, so then you can actually start getting a lower rate. However, the benefit about actually fixing a mortgage, at least you can then budget it to a particular price. But it looks as though these rates are coming down. However, please be careful. You're finding less mortgages being offered, and some of the prices of these mortgages are going up. The banks, even though they may have had a bit of a hard time, don't shed a tear for them, because they are putting costs of money up.
Just very briefly, do you think Christmas is going to look good in terms of spending?
Oh, people always have an amazing ability to find yet another credit card from somewhere. I just dread January, that's all.
Justin Ecclesfield, thank you.
OK, time now is 21 minutes past 6. British shops give out an incredible 13 billion of these every year, but their impact on the environment can be devastating. Councils here in London could be about to follow 80 villages and towns throughout the country and ban the plastic bag. But can British shoppers really live without them? Sue Jamieson has been finding out.
Hello, John. Good morning. We're filling up Debbie Flanagan's house with the amount of carrier bags that the average family uses in a year, which is 800. And the figures are quite staggering if you take a look at it. The average person has 167 carrier bags in the year, but they take between 500 and 1,000 years to disintegrate. 13 billion, as you said, are given out every year. And yet only 3.5% of the world's plastic is recycled. Well, to find out just how many carrier bags usually we get in a day, Debbie and I went shopping. Any old excuse, Debbie, and we saw how many carrier bags we got when we went shopping.
Hello, my name's Debbie Flanagan. I've got 3 children and we're off to do our weekly shop. Come on, Tia.
Looking back on the track for a little greenback. Got to find just the kind or losing my mind.
In Ireland, we haven't had carrier bags for years. That's where my parents are. You have to go down with your bags, down to the supermarket or your box and bring home your shopping. I've even got an extra one outside of that in my bag to go and get a bit more shopping.
When you walk down the road, you see so many of them on the ground and people just do not care.
It's only when you get home and you start unloading and you count them up, you realise actually there's a lot of bags there. Today I spent about £100 and there's about 18 plastic bags there. But you really do pick up a lot of the bags. So if you can use your own, it's a good thing.
Critics of the ban say that we should have the freedom to choose, and they're very convenient. There again, in Australia, these are the ones that I've got from their lovely bright colours. They were 30p each. Maybe that's another way to go. Back to you.
Sue, thanks very much indeed. Joined now by the lady we call our green goddess, Julia Stevenson. A lot of people, as Sue was saying there, would argue, hey, come on, get out of my life. I have a right to choose here.
Well, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because humans left their own devices just to do the easy thing. I mean, it's about time the government actually made life a bit simpler for the individual and put a tax on plastic bags like they do in Ireland, and that's reduced consumption by 90%, which is amazing. Why
Well, those opposed to that notion would say, hey, come on, plastic bags, they only account for 10% of landfill sites anyway, so what's the big problem?
Well, the thing is that, you know, there's so many things we're told to give up really are a bore to give up, like alcohol or cigarettes or bacon sandwiches, but, you know, we're told these things, you know, we must give these things up. But to give up a plastic bag really means nothing. Within a couple of days, we'll all start remembering to bring our reusable bags to the supermarket anyway. So it's not like it's going to make people suffer to give up bags, and yet it has such an incremental improvement on the environment. So
There
why
again,
not?
people argue these reusable bags are much bigger, they're not so easy to carry, and, you know, when they eventually get thrown away, they take up a lot of space too.
Not really, because you can get so many bags that really fold up to absolutely nothing. I have a selection of string bags that I carry around, which just, they sort of, they're tiny and they expand to TARDIS-like proportions. And they're very, very strong and sturdy. And who wants all these horrible plastic bags cluttering up the oceans and the environment in our streets. I mean,
and killing marine life too.
Yes, I know, and that's the most devastating thing of all. When you see these pictures in the newspapers of turtles eating plastic bags, and this, all the birds and the fish eating up these tiny bits of plastic and killing themselves and suffocating themselves.
Some of the options, of course, also give off methane gas. Again, it's argued.
Yes, I know, but the plastic bags give out far more methane gas because they go into, most of them go into landfill, and even the ones they say are biodegradable are not really, because you need the oxygen and the sunshine to degrade them. But when they're in a landfill site, there's no oxygen or sunshine, so it's over 500 years to
Having said all
degrade.
that, no, I take your point. Having said all that, desirable as it is from an environmental point of view, and certainly as far as marine life is concerned, this is a massive industry. Would you like to be the person who said to the producer of plastic bags, all your lads and lasses are out of work today?
I wouldn't like to put anybody out of work, but if you give up plastic bags, there's going to be a lot of other industries that will spring up to make reusable bags, and there's so many other green industries that we can start employing people in. So, you know, that people being out of work through these things is not really a good argument, because those people can work in other developing industries. And you know, the environment, we must do this, because we're just living in the present, living for the moment. But actually, long term, these plastic bags, they hang around for ages, and they give us no benefit. You know.
It's a fascinating argument, and as we say, it started in Mulberry down in Devon, lovely little town down in Devon, by one lady down there, and it's spread all over the country now, and now London are considering doing banning plastic bags. Love to know what you at home think about that. Thanks very much, Julie. Environmentally friendly, are you or not? Tell us what your views are on plastic bags. Should we ban them or should we not? GM.TV is the place to give us your views.
Oh yes, there are some hungry things in the Australian jungle. Janice came back empty-handed from her third bush tucker trial, but the two camps have now become one. Our man on the ground down under is Michael Underwood. Michael, good morning. How did the snakes react last night to Janice failing yet another trial?
Good morning, Penny. They were fine, but I've got to say, what a great moment that was. Janice indeed messed up her third trial. Although, to be honest, she was never going to beat a chef John Burton race to an eating challenge, but she did give us all a bit of a laugh. Take a look.
Are they alive?
Yes.
No.
Salty?
Yeah. Ah, I can't do that. Oh.
Of those?
No. Yeah.
You have to really grind your teeth in.
Crocodile tongue.
Well done. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. More Janice, please. Now, as you mentioned, the two camps did indeed merge into one, and this was very interesting. Neither of them were happy about it, and they're very apprehensive at first. But I can tell you this, in the last few hours, there's been a huge bust-up between Rodney and Janice, and it's upset a lot of the celebrities in camp, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. It's actually created some unusual friendships. Rodney and Lynn have started getting on with each other, chatting and sharing their thoughts and being very friendly, and now Janice and John have also got together and become friendly in the last hour or two. So really unexpected relationships are developing there. Also, this is hot off the press, Keris has started to get very upset because since they've merged into one camp, Mark Bannerman's attentions have been elsewhere. So we'll have to see how that develops.
Oh, it's all happening down there, isn't it? And talking about all happening down there, a few animals about.
Well, we hear there will be an animal. There will be an animal. We don't know when exactly, Penny, but it should be in the next few days, we hope. Fingers crossed. But I can tell you this, big surprise tonight. There's going to be not one, but two trials. We know that Katie Hopkins is doing the coughing trial, Grave Danger, but there's going to be a live trial, the very first one. And I've been told that whatever that trial is, I'm going to be doing it tomorrow, and then you'll get to see it on the show.
Is it going to be a doozy one?
Oh, I guarantee it, Penny, I guarantee it. A real doozy.
Thanks very much, Michael. We still haven't quite worked out what on earth doozy means. But anyway, you can catch up with all the jungle gossip and flick through the latest pictures on the website gm.tv.
Tell you what, if you're going to work this morning in the car, better take care. Quite a lot of fog and freezing fog around, correct?
That's right. It's not a great day to be heading out on the roads. Freezing fog in, and it could well be dense in places. Visibility down to as little as 100 metres. Let's take a look.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Nestle Cereals. Whole grain for the whole family every morning.
Oh, wow.
Hello, good morning. Oh, my graphic hasn't changed. Here we go. Well, it's been a very, very cold night overnight. Temperatures have dropped down to below freezing in places. Not that much in the way of clouds, so that means that the temperatures have really plummeted overnight. You can see here we do have bits and pieces of showers, mainly around the East Anglian coast and also through parts of Essex and Kent. This is where we're seeing the main problems with fog this morning. It's across eastern parts of Wales into the West Midlands. As I say, visibility is down to 100 metres in places. In some areas, it's even thicker than that, so it's quite patchy in nature. You might come across it all of a sudden, so you will need to leave extra time. Now take a look at these temperatures. These are as they are at the moment. Some parts of Oxfordshire have got down to as low as -5, so you will be scraping ice off your car as you head out the door this morning. It's a widespread ground frost. We've also got some fog patches as well around the Glasgow region and also across parts of Northern Ireland as well. I know Belfast has seen a problem with fog this morning. Starting to clear at the moment, but still generally speaking it will remain rather grey for the next couple of hours or so. As we go into the afternoon, the majority of the fog will lift, so that means that many places across England and Wales will see some sunshine. Those showers continuing to peck away at that southeastern coast, and some areas may see the fog just hanging around throughout the day, making it feel very damp and chilly. Across Scotland, well, again, eastern areas, you stand the better chance of seeing some sunshine today. Always going to remain a touch more grey across more western parts, and that includes into Northern Ireland as well. Now, yesterday, we managed to see temperatures getting up to 14 degrees in the Midlands. It'll be a shock to the system for you today because I don't think you're going to be seeing those kind of values. And as we go into tonight, well, it's more of the same really. Another cold night, another widespread ground frost expected, and again we will see these fog patches form, and you can see many places will drop down to below freezing. So another day, another morning of scraping the frost off your car. What that means is that for tomorrow, again we'll see fog causing some problems to begin with. Once that lifts, many places seeing some sunshine, but always a touch cloudier out to the west. Easy summary.
Check out what the weather will be like this weekend on our website, gm.tv.
Good morning. It's a smidge after 6:30. It's Thursday, the 15th of November.
Yes, you're watching the News Hour here on GMTV. The top stories this morning: still searching in the sandpit. Police look for more victims where the body of missing teenager Vicky Hamilton was found.
Barry George finds out today if he's won his latest appeal against his conviction for murdering Jill Dando.
And a simple new way to tackle dyslexia. Could it be the solution to illiteracy in our schools? But first, police are to resume searching for human remains at a house in Kent where the skeleton of a missing girl was discovered. The remains of 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton were found in the garden of the Margate property. Peter Tobin, who once lived at that address, is due to appear in court today on charges related to Vicky's death. Richard Gaisford has this.
Vicky's remains were found at a house in Margate by police investigating the disappearance of another missing girl, Dinah McNichol. Both vanished 16 years ago. Vicky lived in Stirlingshire and was last seen waiting for a bus in Bathgate. Personal items belonging to her have also been found at the house in Kent. Police are still searching the property for the remains of Dinah McNichol. She failed to return home to Essex after going to a music festival in Hampshire. Peter Tobin will appear in court today, charged in connection with Vicky's disappearance. He used to live at the house in Margate and was arrested and charged in July this year. Police now say they're looking at other murders and missing persons cases to determine if they could be linked to the discovery of Vicky's body.
Richard Gaisford reporting that.
Let's get this morning's other news stories now from Priya.
Thanks, Benny. New proposals to hold terrorist suspects for up to 58 days without trial are to be unveiled by ministers today. It would extend the current 28-day limit, a move which is opposed by the Tories and Liberal Democrats and some Labour MPs. The man found guilty of murdering TV presenter Jill Dando will find out today if he can appeal against his conviction if it's been successful. It's the second legal challenge that Barry George has launched over the guilty verdict, which was passed 6 years ago. Jonathan Swain sent us this report from the High Court.
Well, the decision is expected to be announced just after 10 o'clock from the appeal court behind me. Now, the judges have some various options open to them. One scenario is that Barry George could walk out of court later on today a free man, although that I am told that the most likely outcome is that this case will then be sent for a retrial, which means that the three appeal court judges have some serious doubts about the evidence that they heard during the appeal last week, and then they'll decide that it will now be for a new jury, perhaps next year, to decide whether Barry George is guilty or not of killing Jill Dando. Well, I was in the appeal hearing for 3 days last week, and there we heard from the forensic scientists who carried out tests on that tiny speck of firearms residue that was found in Barry George's coat pocket at the time of his arrest. And all of those experts concluded that they couldn't be certain for sure as to whether this firearms residue found in Barry George's coat pocket actually was used by the gun that killed Jill Dando. Well, the judges, of course, could uphold the conviction, in which case Barry George would simply go back to jail and serve his life sentence. But if I suspect that this case is then sent for a retrial later on today, there'll be lots of questions will be asked. If Barry George didn't kill Jill Dando, then who did?
The deaths of 7 members of the same family in a fire in Northern Ireland are being treated as murder, according to police. Investigators found evidence that petrol had been used as an accelerant inside the house. Well, Elaine Wilcox is at the scene in Omagh. Elaine, have all the bodies been found now?
Yes, good morning. The last 2 bodies, thought to be 2 of the children, were found late yesterday afternoon. All 7 bodies are still inside the burnt-out shell of this family home. It's thought they will be moved later this afternoon, where some of the family and friends will stand in silent vigil. This community is still reeling from the shock that this fire was started deliberately. A large quantity of petrol was found inside this house, which explains why it became such an inferno so quickly. Now, one of the eyewitnesses who desperately tried to get into this house got a ladder to one of the top windows. He saw the father inside that building, and he said he was simply staring at him. There were no children with him, but they heard the children's mother screaming from another room.
I roared at him to get out or give me somebody out or just do something. But the man was just totally helpless and lifeless. He was just totally shocked.
Now, the police are looking at the possibility that this father, Arthur McElhill, was responsible for this blaze, but the police say it is still early days in this inquiry. Obviously, the firefighters say the horror of what they saw inside that house, the burnt-out pram and cot, will stay with them forever. Back to you.
Elaine, thank you. A British soldier has been killed in southern Afghanistan. He was serving with the 2nd Battalion, the Yorkshire Regiment, when his patrol was caught in a blast near Sangin in Helmand Province. His family have been informed. The exiled former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has told GMTV that he plans to return to his country to challenge President Pervez Musharraf. The country is currently under emergency rule, with many opposition figures, including Imran Khan and Benazir Bhutto, under arrest. Look at what's on our website this morning: why children are too scared to cross the road outside school. Find out what drives unhappy workers to fast food and alcohol. And should we ditch plastic bags to save the planet? You can vote in our online poll. All that and more at gm.tv. Finally, more than half of all families eat different dishes when they sit down to dinner. That's according to a new survey. Fussy eaters and an increase in food allergies are blamed for the decline in families sharing the same meal. That's it from me. Now back to John.
Thanks very much, Priya. Just an update now on a story we covered yesterday. I'm sure you'll remember Jean Williams, who'd been waiting for a new boiler since July, ringing the Warm Front Scheme. That's a government agency asking them to help out. At that stage, they hadn't done so well. We're delighted to say that after her appearance on GMTV, the boiler was promptly fixed, and she's now looking forward to having her first bath at home in something like 6 months. Jean joins us on the line now. Jean, great news, fantastic. Just talk me through what happened when you, after you spoke to us on GMTV.
Well, they left about 10:15 in the morning, and at 11:30 I got a phone call to say that somebody would be round to repair the boiler, the installers. But it wasn't the installer's fault, I would like to say, because they weren't informed about my situation. And within 2 hours, I had all full heat.
So it was a breakdown in communication, we now know, but remarkably, within a couple of hours of being on GMTV, you've got a new boiler, and it's working well. You've had your first bath, really?
Yeah, no, it's not a new boiler. They repaired the broken one.
OK.
Yes, and everything is fine. It's lovely. The house is lovely and warm this morning, and I've got hot water.
Jean, we are delighted to hear it and glad to be of help. Thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the team that came yesterday.
Well, our team or the Warm Front team?
Well, it isn't Warm Front team that fixed it, actually, but I don't know whether I'm allowed to say their name. No, I meant the Matt and Gemma and all the cameramen.
Our mates, yes, indeed. Well, I'll pass that on to you. Thanks very much indeed. We're delighted to be of help.
Yeah, and they enjoyed the tea.
Yeah.
The time is 6:39. Here's what's happening where you are.
Thanks very much. Good morning. The main stories here in the northwest. The jury in the trial of 5 teenagers accused of kicking to death a Cheshire man will today visit the scene of his murder. Gary Newlove from Warrington was attacked when he went to remonstrate with youths outside his home who were vandalising his wife's car. Adam Swellings and 4 other teenagers who can't be named all deny murder. A man shot dead in Liverpool on Tuesday night has been named. Colin Smith, who was 40, was shot as he came out of a gym on Alderwood Avenue in Speke. He was killed just yards from a primary school. Inquiries into his death are continuing. The threat of strike action at Liverpool John Lennon Airport's been averted. Talks between the airport management and unions over the recent pay dispute have now ended. Unions have accepted a backdated pay offer of nearly 4.5%. It's taken 15 months to build and cost over £30 million, but the wait is finally over. Manchester's latest attraction, which has been built opposite the Trafford Centre, has its grand opening later. Chill Factory is the longest indoor ski slope in the country and comes complete with tons of real snow. It'll open its doors to the public tomorrow. Some of the finest Northwest footballers will be entered tonight into this year's Hall of Fame. Blackburn manager and former Manchester United star Mark Hughes will be recognised along with the former Liverpool striker Peter Beardsley and the Manchester United and World Cup legend Nobby Stiles. The gala ceremony will be held at Old Trafford. Sale Sharks will unveil their new signing later. Luke McAllister, who's a current All Black, will face the media at a press conference at Edgeley Park. The 23-year-old's probably the biggest signing made by any club in the Guinness Premiership during a close season. A Lancashire fish and chip shop is celebrating after being awarded the prize for the best in the region. Seniors in Thornton Cleveleys won the prestigious title after being open for just 14 months. The family-run business will now enter a nationwide competition to find the nation's best chippy.
We're fish merchants by trade. All our fish is purchased locally. We're buying from a local market, sustainable fish, good fish, fresh fish daily, and that's what enables us to be as successful as we are.
That's it for now. I'm back at 7:05. In a moment, we'll return to John and Penny, but first, a look at the region's weather.
Forecast gorgeous hair with Pantene Time Renewal, sponsors of GMTV Weather.
A chilly start to the day with a frost in places and some dense fog patches around. Most places will see spells of sunshine both this morning and this afternoon. There'll be highs today of a nippy 7 degrees Celsius.
Welcome back. Lots more still to come on the News Hour this morning, including a revolutionary new technique claiming a 90% success rate in the treatment of dyslexia.
And after 7 o'clock on GMTV today, Brian Conley's in the studio to explain how bowel cancer devastated his family.
Let's have a quick look at the morning papers. The Independent leads on the news that, Imran Khan, my life is in danger. Of course, he was arrested after that report was filed by the Independent's correspondent. Mortgage relief as bank rates set to fall is a splash in the Times, and the Express goes with that confident prediction as well. And there, on the front there, this lovely picture of nature going crazy, really. A spring lamb born in mid-November up near Sunderland. Front page of the Daily Mail, they talk about new security regulations, which may mean travellers being questioned are being asked 53 different questions, although Telegraph, I think Penny was saying, says it's 90 different questions. It's a lot of questions, anyway, which you answer when you buy the ticket, not at the airport, just in case you're panic-stricken. Is it a mass grave? That's that horrible story down in Kent.
And that, in fact, is what we're talking about now. A 61-year-old man, Peter Tobin, will appear in court today in connection with the death of 15-year-old missing teenager Vicky Hamilton. Links between Vicky's death and the disappearances of several women across the south of England and in Scotland are now being investigated. Police are still searching the garden of a house in Margate where Tobin once lived. Richard Gaisford is there for us. Richard.
Yes, good morning, Penny. Well, police came here to Irvine Drive in Margate, not in connection with Vicky Hamilton's disappearance, but with that of Dinah McNichol. Now, she's an 18-year-old girl who was last seen back in 1991, having left a music festival in Hampshire, and they thought there was information about this particular property that was linked to her disappearance, so they started the search. But what they found in the back garden under the sandpit wasn't Dinah McNichol's body, but the skeleton of Vicky Hamilton, who was aged 15 at the time she disappeared. Now, this is bizarre. She disappeared some 500 miles away up in Bathgate in Scotland, and obviously part of the police inquiry is just quite how she ended up here in the back garden of this particular home here in Margate. They continue to search, they continue to dig in the back garden. They're convinced that they do have a chance of perhaps finding Dinah McNichol. And as all of that happens, a man who used to live here in the house, you've mentioned his name already this morning, Peter Tobin, an odd job man who was 61 years old, will appear in court today in connection with Vicky Hamilton's disappearance.
Richard, thanks very much. Joining me now is former Met Police Detective Hamish Brown. Good morning to you. Police thought to be looking at other missing cases across the country. How difficult is it going to be to get a link?
Well, of course, it's going to be very difficult. They're talking about many, many cases, of course. And, of course, the police, whilst being specific on some issues, they've got to be open-minded as well. And it's very careful not to raise people's hopes. You know, someone's gone missing many years ago, and I'm sure people are just clinging on to this. So let's keep our feet on the ground and leave the police to get on with it. Now, I know the Hampshire police are coordinating this, and I'm sure they'll have specific cases in mind, but they will spread their net wide. They'll be looking at people going missing, and they'll be looking at what evidence have they got. You know, is there DNA evidence they collected over the years? The investigation of missing people has changed so much over the years, you know. We're looking for strands of hair, toothbrushes, this sort of thing when people go missing now. But that didn't happen 10, 20 years ago. So it's a little bit of a difficult start.
So you say Hampshire police are coordinating it. Will all the other police forces up and down the country be looking through their missing persons file and going, right, this might fit the bill, and then putting it all down? I mean, I'm assuming there's quite a lot of missing people.
Yes, I'm sure the police forces around the country will do just that, because we know that this is national, because you know, someone's found who went missing 500 miles away. So yes, all police forces will have to do that, and they must be selective in what they put forward. And I say it is being coordinated by Hampshire, and it's for them to take that forward.
And how extensive will the search of this house be?
Well, it's absolutely essential. It is extensive. As we know, it's well publicised. There has been some excavation in the garden, but I think the entire garden will have to be done. They'll have to keep going on that. The houses, is there something hidden somewhere? Is there a basement? Possibly a newish house, maybe not. But what about the loft? Look, absolutely everything. The drainage system, everything must be gone through. I could see them been there some time, you know.
And you've worked on a number of murder cases. How different are these, what they call cold cases, these review cases?
Yes. Well, cold cases have done very well. I mean, they're relatively new, really. Sort of initially, when I started 30 years ago, we were looking at murders then, we didn't really go back to them. But it has happened now, and there are a number of reasons for that. I think one, certainly, you've got to keep these murder cases going. You can't just shelve it and sort of give up. But certainly the advances of DNA and other evidence as well is quite right. And we have seen, you know, people go back and ask people, do they remember certain things? And people do change their minds about issues. So yes, the cold case thing is very important, and keep going. Give people hope that maybe those people will be found and gone missing, or indeed murders will be solved.
Hamish Brown, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time now 6:47. Up to 10% of the population is thought to have dyslexia, and many children go undiagnosed until they reach secondary school. Well, a groundbreaking project aimed at tackling dyslexia in schools early could be expanded after initial trials in London and Manchester proved so successful. Cordelia Kreshmar has been to a school in South London to see how it works.
I spy something beginning with...
This game will seriously improve Clemmie's future.
Man. Well done.
Well, normally by the age of 6, you'd expect to be spelling 4-letter words like swim and lamp, so it looks like Clemmie could be in need of a bit of help.
But after 2 years in this groundbreaking project, it's almost guaranteed she'll return to class with an average reading age.
Fat. So what can you hear in the middle of fat?
So what's the secret of the scheme's success? Well, each child gets an hour a week of one-on-one attention from a skilled volunteer. They're taught to spell phonetically according to sound.
So what can you hear in the middle of bin? Good boy. Shall we post it through?
And it's rewarding for the child.
You were right, weren't you?
just to show you the kind of extraordinary success that this one-on-one teaching is having. This is David's writing book. This is what he was doing just a year ago, spelling out the letter C. This is just what he's written for us now. A full sentence, the man is big. How does it make you feel having a few problems with reading and writing?
S-A-D, sad.
Sad.
It really is as simple as ABC.
Good, well done, you.
Wonderful story. Joined now by Margaret McVeigh from the charity Springboard for Children, who are pioneering this scheme. It is a lovely, wonderful story, great success. But it does depend on volunteers, doesn't it?
Yes, we use a lot of volunteers, and that's what makes it cost effective, of course, for the schools. We're running with about 70 or 80 volunteers. Most of those are part-time, and there are a range of age groups, and we have a few full-time volunteers, young people who finished at university and give us their time. But we do have also some trained literacy teachers in charge of the units.
And I suspect it's been such a success because, as well as everything else, you make it fun, don't you?
Yes, we make it fun. The children enjoy it. One of the things I noticed when I first visited the schools, walking across the playground with my Springboard badge on for identification, little children came up and smiled and spoke to me and said, you know, can I come to Springboard?
Well, that's good news.
Yes.
And it helps not just children who are formally diagnosed as dyslexic, but others who have other, perhaps less severe difficulties.
That's right. I mean, our mission really is to help schools to banish illiteracy so that young people leave primary school being able to read and write effectively. So we're working with the bottom 10 to 20% who are having real difficulties across a range of learning difficulties. And it's a one-to-one tuition. They get 2 sessions a week, and we use a multisensory phonics program and a whole variety of resources with that.
But it's crucial you get to them really early, and the problem, as we identified in the introduction of this item so often, is that this problem is not identified until they get to secondary school.
Yes, and it's early intervention is absolutely the answer. I myself was a secondary school teacher for almost 3 decades, and I saw children coming into secondary school with difficulties with reading and writing, and it's extraordinarily difficult to sort it out at that stage. So I'm absolutely passionate about helping children from the very beginning. And we have had some startling successes with the children that we've taught.
What would have happened to these youngsters, do you think, had they not become literate in this way? What does the evidence show about kids who are dyslexic after they leave school?
Well, the evidence shows that 70% of young offenders are functionally illiterate, and of course it gives rise to a lack of self-esteem, low self-confidence, frustration, a sense of failure, and that just leads them into all kinds of
trouble.
Yes, unsavoury activities sometimes.
Well, all power to your elbow. It's a terrific scheme. Well done. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We've been swamped with emails about plastic bags.
Bagfuls, in fact.
Exactly. Thank you very much for all of them. Most people actually in favour of not having plastic bags. Brian Scunthorpe from Scunthorpe says make them out of paper. That's what they used to do before plastic came along, of course.
Yes, Jackie says we live in France and no supermarkets give plastic bags. You have to buy recycled ones. If they wear out, you replace them. Ban the bag, she says.
And I'm so with Chris in Brighton. Charge for bags. Till assistants are very keen on shoving out bags, placing very few items in each one. And that is so true, isn't it? They just put like 2 in and then they get another bag. And you say, no, I didn't want any bags anyway. The amount of plastic packaging on food in the supermarkets is ridiculous and totally uncalled for. Lots of those sorts of
Keep them coming.
as well.
We plan big things for plastic bags, or the movement against them anyway on this programme. So give us your thoughts either way. That's it from the two of us. Twinkle Toes is back. Garraway's here, yes, with Andrew up with GMTV today in just a sec.
Lots more on banning the plastic bag, but after this short break, it's the weather with Andrew.